This is the most sacrilegious thing I've ever seen in the guitar community. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Warning, this is not for the squeamish viewers of the guitar collecting community. Take a look at this Les Paul custom. A little bit unassuming at first. We've got a beautiful natural top to this custom. We've got some interesting wood grain, maybe even a little bit of bird's eye in a few areas. Some spots you might be able to call flame. It would be an interesting top in person. However, we've got gold hardware on here that's clearly been worn in. This is somebody's player that's loved this thing. But interestingly enough, no pickguard holes on this. Okay, fascinating. We move on to the headstock. Again, we can tell it's been used, maybe even kind of abused, but we can tell. Ooh, interesting historic style truss rod cover. Maybe this is actually something special, a particular year reissue perhaps. Well, it's got a Nashville style bridge, so no, this isn't trying to be like a 68 reissue or anything like that. There must be more to the tale of this. But now the side profile of our headstock. A white finish? What is going on here? And then we get to the back with what looks like potentially see-through back plates, and there's a white finish around the rims. But yet the whole mahogany back is a natural finish. You've got some pretty cool wood grain and flame figuring back here as well. But then we zoom in on here, 3-piece maple neck. What is going on there? This thing has been refretted with extra giant jumbo frets, apparently maybe even gold if I'm viewing these photos correctly. It's got a custom shop case, even a COA matching with all this. Even the original box potentially? My friends, the answer to what this weird beast of a guitar is. Oh my goodness. When I saw this, I had to instantly make this video. It was listed 8 minutes ago. This Les Paul custom was a Zakk Wylde Bullseye. You know, this one right here on the screen, the ultra highly collectible one. The whole reason why you buy it is it comes stock with the EMG pickups. It's got the bullseye graphic. It is synonymous with Zakk Wylde. People pay $1,000 for the old Epiphone ones. People ask between $5,000 and $10,000 for original ones. He's had so many different makes and models, from weird SGV collaborations to even cheaper style BFG offerings in Buzzsaw and Bullseye graphics. Zakk's design is so popular, he even went on to form his own Wylde audio brand to do his own stuff, making the original Gibson models highly collectible. And this guy just erased all of it. You know, I gotta give respect. That is a ballsy move. All of the value in that guitar was in that original paint job finish. So to take that and strip it off to give your own identity to the guitar that you particularly like, that took guts. I'm honestly surprised they even left the back of the headstock alone, because if they're trying to get rid of Zakk, they could have easily gotten rid of him too. Now, what's interesting about Zakk Wylde necks in general is they are naturally natural to begin with, because he liked to sand the finish off of his original one. But it appears this person has just played straight through all that. So yeah, if you ever wanted to know what was underneath one of those bullseyes, here you go. 2-piece plain maple top with some decent wood grain and some surprisingly good mahogany back here. But now some of you guys might be skeptical. Was there really somebody out there that had money to burn and wanted to really refinish one of these Gibson ones? Because hey, there's no fret nibs right here. Are we sure this is not a Gibson fake? Everything I see is 100% legit, unfortunately for this guitar's fate. But in this very strange turn of events, I kinda like it. I kinda want it, because who does that? Nobody does that. I would have never guessed in a million years something like this would show up. And the seller's name here is Midnight Famous. Well, we're close to midnight yet recording this, so maybe, just maybe, he will get famous over this stunt. But he's asking 5,000 smackaroonies here. Add in shipping, it's almost 5,500. I say good luck at that price point. Because there's one right here at 5,800, has the COA, all that stuff, still has the original EMG pickups in it, speed knobs, all that good stuff, including our fret nibs. Hasn't been played as much as the other one, has the original bullseye finish on it, still has the original truss rod cover, original tuners. Nowhere near as beat up, but here you can see what I was talking about earlier, how they naturally have the clear neck with the white stinger. I'm honestly surprised this one hasn't sold yet. That's a fantastic deal. I've been seeing these things sell and list for higher. I mean, there was a time, $7,000-8,000 was very fair game for one of these. So that brings up a really interesting question here. How much is this worth? Well, I can confidently say $5,000 will sell one of these regardless of price. Now, it can go for more as we were just talking about, but let's say $5,000. Since this is a refinish, not necessarily a break, crack, or repair, it shouldn't really devalue it by 50%, should it? However, with that finish being so iconic and part of the identity of this, that's like buying the Ness Deluxe and routing it out for humbuckers. It's like, who does that? Or buying the age-signed Adam Jones signature to refinish it in Cherry Sunburst. I mean, this is on the same level of craziness as that. I feel like it would devalue it more so than just the regular played-in refinished examples. But at the same time, you gotta remember, these Zakk Wylde customs, they have a vibe. They are great. I've reviewed them before, and I was an even worse guitar player back then, and I could feel there was something special to those things. And since I can't see any real breaks, cracks, or repairs, I totally think, depending on the quality of the refinish job, because that's going to mean a lot how well the refret was done. I mean, we've got a lot of material to work with here. If it wasn't done right, you could probably make it right. I view this as a solid $25,000 to $3,000 USD example, which might seem crazy for the condition, but remember, it is a Zakk Wylde custom at the end of the day. It's got his cool specs, now everything's been changed, but it's also a Les Paul custom if you really think about it. So, despite being completely messed with here, it's still pretty cool. So who knows, maybe he'll cut his price, or maybe somebody will fall in love with it like I kinda did and want to pay that much because they didn't have to do the molestation to this. Here's some good things. It has 60s Grover tuners on it, which yes, I can back that up. You got the milk bottle style and the patent pending right here, USA made. I mean, those are fantastic tuners. They're worth a pretty good amount on their own, so that's a little bit of a bonus. As far as the pickups, you went back to passive, so you no longer have the active EMGs. Not good if you're a Zakk Wylde fan, great if you're a Les Paul custom fan. Bare knuckle Rebel Yell, I can imagine those would be pretty good. Looks like they swapped out the bridge and tailpiece for something a little bit more modern, and those frets are EVOs. Yeah, what an interesting guitar. I'm so happy something interesting showed up tonight. But since we've got some time left today, let's take a look at a couple others. And we'll actually start it with this PRS private stock. So this one was listed about a month or so ago, and there was a big hype behind it. It was listed by Ish Guitars over in Syracuse, New York. And Reverb did a piece on it. Apparently, Paul Reed Smith wanted to submit this to a museum because he thought it was so beautiful. And I really enjoyed Ish's video on this because it was an interesting piece that catches your attention. Because normally we're used to something like this from the PRS private stock world. Beautiful flamed / quilty maple top with an exotic finish. I really like these McCartys because they're very Les Paul-like in this layout down here. But you've got a red, white, and blue eagle, you've got a city skyline going on the fretboard, and that's some really detailed buildings in there. That's not just, vague outlines either. You've even got the little ocean down here, I love that. But these private stocks can really go crazy, especially on the back. Like the necks they use on these things, incredibly figured for mahogany. You could also get something a little bit more basic, but still equally as flamed, with very unique inlays. Or perhaps you prefer their single cut varieties. PRS has a whole bunch of different shapes. But if I put all 4 of those on the screen, which one screams at you first? It's this guy, because it's so different. They were really hyping this piece up, and it sold instantaneously. But to be honest, I'm kind of surprised. So they called it the McCarty 594 Variegated Gold Leaf. I mean, if I had to give this guitar a custom name, I would have called it the Golden Rectum, because that's what it looks like, I'm sorry. It's almost got a little bit of like a burl top to it effect, because you can watch Ish's video on this. Basically, they went to the PRS factory a couple of years ago. They picked out this unique top that they were looking for, and unfortunately there were like some gaps in it, so they decided to do this whole variegated gold pattern on it. So I guess they do like a gold leaf, and then they take a torch and they kind of burn it, kind of like the verdigris stuff. I would assume it's something similar to that, a chemical reaction that puts some of the green elements in that. So they just kind of did a unique pattern around that. So I'll give it to them. It's fascinating, but it wasn't my favorite. But I'd be happy to listen to your guys' thoughts and opinions about it. Because even though I'm not a big fan of the top, there are many elements that I do like about this, like this. You see how normally PRSs have that exposed maple edge because, it gives it that faux binding effect, but it's like a natural flamed binding at the same time because PRS uses crazy quality woods. This time they had to incorporate the gold along the edges, and that looks great because it varies depending on, what surface was there. Oh, and apparently they did blue flame maple inlays to help bring out some of the blue textures. Now they had to preemptively think, okay, that's going to happen because this shop did the custom order, and they had to spec it out before they saw what the body looked like. I will say the headstock is looking pretty cool. You've got the flame tuning pegs on this thing. I like the blue outlines of the eagle there. That's nice. And any news article always talked about the top because that's the big attention-getting piece, right? But can we just take a second to appreciate the back on that? Yes. Ultra crazily flamed neck, but we expect that nowadays. But I like the dark burst of the heel and the dark burst around the edges of the headstock. That really sells that whole finish. And then you've got the nice natural woody mahogany colors back here. So that's pretty interesting. And we can at least call it a one-of-a-kind unique art piece, if nothing else. But that thing sold in like minutes for $16,000. But if I had the choice between these four, of course, I would go with the more expensive one, unfortunately, $22,000. But to cap off tonight's episode, let's take a look at this 335 from the year 2000. So I just recently reviewed, I believe it was like a 2001, 2003 335. And like in my head, I memorize what certain guitars feel like, especially when they're ultra unique. And that was one of those guitars, like if I think about it in my head, I can feel it. These guys have those weird D-shaped necks to them. So looking at this guitar, it's way different now than as compared to before I had that. And I was like, oh, what are all these 335s? How are they so different? It's like the Les Paul world. You can't just feel one and know how they all are. You gotta have experience with all of them throughout all the generations. But anyways, why we're talking about this one, look at the top. That is excellent for a 335. Now you gotta remember, these are laminate tops. Like this is just a thin veneer. They can cut a whole bunch of these. That's why you see a lot of one-piece top 335s, because it's easier for them to do that. They're maple poplar maple sandwiches. They bend together to create the top, back, and sides. But take a look at this area. It's almost a dead spot on an otherwise almost flawless top. But I like that because it gives it character. It's not so dead that it looks blah. It's just a little bit of variation, and I bet that spot changes in the different lighting angles. Now it looks like somebody added a weird tortoiseshell pickguard. I've never been a big fan of those. It really depends on the finish. I'm particularly upset with this one because somebody had to move the bracket on it. But then we swap over to the back. It's a perfect match to the top, to a T, even in that same area. I like it. But here's another viewing angle where you can kind of see what I was talking about. I mean, this is just nice and wavy, beautiful. You can also see that the sides have pretty nice figuring to them as well. But the serial of this one dates it to the year 2000, about midway. It's got a beautiful rosewood fretboard, a little bit of fret wear, typical lacquer shrinking lines around the logos. And the only thing it's missing is an uncharacteristically figured neck or something, which occasionally, if you get lucky, you can find figured mahogany necks in Gibson territory. All right, troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. I hope to never see another strip bullseye custom ever again, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.